despite seeming out of place. So as we're going to go through a list of 10 things that you won't believe that are illegal down under. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Number 1, psychics.
What?
Yes. Psychics and mediumship are illegal in the Northern Territory in South Australia. South Australia have a pretty broad ban prohibiting, now this is the quote, okay, a person who, with intent to defraud, purports to act as a spiritualist or medium or to exercise powers of telepathy or clairvoyance or other similar powers. The offence as, how many large do you think it is?
Oh, probably $1,000, $2,000.
Nah, go up a little more. It's a hefty 10 grand fine or the risk of 2 years of imprisonment. Now, I would like to know whether or not those psychics could see that shit coming.
But surely there's a happy medium there somewhere.
Well, let's get on to a happy medium. Number 2, I'm sorry to say, but your favourite pastime may be illegal. Films depicting actual sex between consenting adults are subject to an X-18 classification. However, X-18 films can only be exhibited or sold in the ACT or Northern Territory. So every other jurisdiction, sellers and exhibitors risk a hefty fine. So I'm saying you pop on down the sex shop and get yourself a stick movie, you and they are both in trouble. You could be. Yes, you could be in trouble for just going in to buy a stroke movie.
So you get your stroke movie, and then the plod roll by.
The plod.
And, you were going to have a nice afternoon of watching someone get and then you're Is that what you're trying to tell me there, Benny?
I am.
God damn it.
Also, by the way, as well, like the X-18 classification is only reserved for the most vanilla of sexual acts. So, if, for example, you want to watch, like, the dripping of candle wax...
This is a Madonna movie.
Wait. The actual words in the classification guidelines are apparently too saucy for Australia and are outright banned from smutty films. So, you can't watch candle wax getting dripped on someone. Otherwise, the oink have got you.
Oh, God damn it.
I know. Oh, yeah, by the way, internet porn is not also allowed at all. So, don't tell anyone about that.
I'm getting that bracelet for Christmas anyway. You know, the medic alerts that say, I'm a diabetic or I have fits. I've got one that says, delete my browser history.
Number 3. Now, listen, as your ears bleeding from like every single pop music song that's out now that just has to feature somebody. You can't make a song these days unless you feature Nicki Minaj or Drake or some other.
Or that mumble rap crap that's going on.
Exactly right. Well, anyway, in the Northern Territory, they've got your back, bro. They have got your back. A $200 fine applies in the Territory to people who play musical instruments so as to annoy people. Ooh. So if you had a kazoo or a harmonica, I have a harmonica right here. So at the moment, if you're listening to this in the Northern Territory, arrest me, plod.
It's a long drive to come and get you for a $200 fine.
It is a $200 fine.
Maybe I'll send you one of those, speed camera photos.
Me blowing on a harmonica. Yeah. Other jurisdictions have laws allowing buskers to be moved on if they're not approved by local council. But if only we could get a national ban on all Nicki Minaj covers, that'd be sensational.
Yeah, it would.
Paid punch-ons. Now, number 4, fancy yourself as a slightly pudgier sort of Tyler Durden. Well, you better stick to the first rule of Fight Club down in South Australia. $750 fine applies to a person who accepts a challenge to fight for money or engages in a prize fight. Exceptions apply to recognised professional sports and licensed venues. But if you want to just get out there on the field and just, go for the slugfest, mate, no, you cannot do that. $750 fine.
Use your noodle, and probably most boxers won't because they've been bashed around the head a fair bit. But you do a prize fight for $1,500, and you pay your $750 fine, and you come out $750 ahead.
I didn't think of it that way. That's quite good. Number 5. Begging is actually illegal, okay? So we know that, okay? So most jurisdictions in Australia, except WA and New South Wales, have actually got criminal offences attached to begging for money. So you see people in the street in Sydney, Pitt Street Mall, things like that.
Near Central.
Yeah, the Central and stuff like that. And they've got a little sign and they're asking for a little bit of money. Of course, the last time I got asked if I had a bit of spare change for a homeless person, I said, I'm really sorry, I only carry hundreds. And then I couldn't. He asked a specific question. I gave him a correct answer. But criminalising begging is something that could ostensibly make the situation worse, though. As to
well, they're going to collect.
And by the way, I'm kidding. I didn't do that in Sydney at all.
No, you wouldn't have 100 to rub together. 200s even.
No.
Unless you go for that prize fight, then you'll have $750.
And number 6... As I know, just keep your pants on, all right? Keep your pants on.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
Keep your pants on because I think it's in Victoria, for this kind of exposure, if you bare your ass to anyone, otherwise known as mooning, it is deemed as behaviour that's indecent, offensive, or insulting, which includes behaviour that involves a person exposing their person's anal or genital region. Now, I've seen women walking down the street with the G-bangers up around the hip and the pant down, and you basically can see top of ass cheek. And then time moves on and then you've got the shorts that look
the Daisy Dukes.
The Daisy Dukes that looks like a personal body part is actually slowly chewing on the denim. And you see everything. But apparently in Victoria, it is deemed an offence.
What about getting the budgie smugglers on and going down to the beach and you got your package hanging out the front? Everyone can see what religion you are.
I know. Well, they don't really go to the beach much in Victoria, do they, considering it's...
Is there a beach in Victoria?
Yeah, of course. You go down to the beach in Victoria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Too busy having deconstructed lattes, aren't they, in Melbourne somewhere?
Number 7, tackling pigeons as...
What?
Yes.
What the f***?
You just heard me say that right. Now, they're seen as a pest. Where we live, they're a pest.
Rats with wings.
Like, they're like Indian minor birds. They're a pest too, right? But
there's one near my house that lives in the tree where I park my car under when I get home from work. And every time I wash that bastard, I dead set think the pigeon turns itself inside out because the pile, the patch of shit that he undoubtedly leaves on my car every time I wash the thing is like, those teen mums after they're done with the club and they're outside the club and they have a yak, the puddle of yak you see around the club. It's about that size.
I can't really remember.
Theatre of the mind, Benny. Come on.
All right. Now, look, the domestic pigeon was once quite useful in communication, but now they've lost their use. In South Australia, if a person kills, injures, or takes any homing pigeon or goes onto someone's land with the intent to do so, is guilty of the offence, and similar offences apply in Victoria, carrying a fine. Don't know what the fine is, but what do you think the fine should be? They're flying rats, for sake.
Oh, it's all for the birds.
Now, as number 8... This gets me. This is hilarious. I can't wait to be invited to more weddings in South Australia.
All right.
Because having a good reason as to why the bride and groom shall not be wed, you better keep your mouth shut in South Australia or you could go to prison for 2 years.
Really?
It's an offence to intentionally obstruct or disturb a wedding or a funeral.
Well, how do you object at a funeral? They're dead. It's all like, hang on, he's got a pulse.
Yeah. Wait a minute, whoa. He's got his iPod, my iPod in his front pocket. Stop this shit, get it now. Anyway, the punishment's a hefty one. So the offence only applies during the actual service.
Right.
So during the actual service. So if you think the groom's a bit of a flog, right, you'd want to raise your objection at the engagement party.
And then don't bet on the fight that comes after that.
Oh, man. Yeah, South Australia, repressed. All right, number 9, this is fairly obvious. Laser pointers, as.
Yeah, it's a fairly obvious thing. They shine them at planes and helicopters, and it's a bad time all round, really.
Yeah, well, it's down in Tassie and New South Wales. So merely just having a laser pointer on you without a lawful excuse carries a hefty fine. Now, I remember a few years back, they used to make laser pointers in the key rings.
Yes.
So you can have your keys and then go off and do a presentation and point to the various things. Profits are up. We need to cut this, we need to cut that. And those other little pissy laser pointers, that whatever. Like a little red one's not going to hurt a paint.
Drive to your place of work, produce a great PowerPoint presentation and point shit out.
because the coppers are going to point shit out to you if you've got one on you. And finally, number 10, well, with this one as we're pretty much swearing. Now, despite being a country that has almost colloquialized the C word, which is a term of endearment,
I'll see you next Tuesday.
Australia have the offensive language laws in public. So what really constitutes offensive language depends on the context and culture as.
Right.
So put it this way. So offensive language seems to be sort of evolving over time.
Yeah.
Gay rights activists reclaimed the word into the public parlance with that 2015 judgment indicating that signs during a protest that told the right-wing politician, the Reverend Fred Nile, to off were fair game.
That's great.
It is great. So if you're offended by the swearing on this program, whilst it may be, well, we always have a disclaimer that the content could be offensive.
And slightly adult.
Just get over it.
Yeah.
This is The Burble with Benny and Az.
I was going through some old photos as recently of a party that me and you went to because we went to school together, and there was these photos of all of us standing around a 44-gallon drum where the fire was keeping us warm, even though it was like, I think it was November. It must have been the day after we had our Year 12 grad or something like that.
I kind of hazily remember that party.
Yes, you do. I remember you were well-sourced. Talking about this party, it was invited by the person holding the party to bring along all your textbooks, your notes, your Year 12 notes, your Year 11 stuff, all of that kind of stuff. Stuff that was pertinent a month before when you're studying for your HSC, your high school certificate. And we just basically burnt the lot down into the barrel, raised the fire up, all that kind of thing. Well, it's like a ritual that nearly every single Year 12 person who goes to a party where there's a bonfire or a 44-gallon, right?
It's got to burn something.
You got to burn the notes. Like they're burning part of their life. 13 years of that. Oh, well, you're not going to burn like, kindergarten finger paints and stuff like that. But it's mainly all the high school HSC stuff. Yeah. You keep your Excel books. You can sell those on later on. That's how it was back when we were there. But we literally have tubs of notes that just got flung into the flames.
But I think every school kid has always said, that's it. I'm going to burn all this shit once I'm done. Bugger it. I'm never going to use algebra again.
No. Why the hell do I need to use the word hypotenuse after I walk out of this classroom, sir? Don't do that anymore. That is not a thing you should be doing anymore.
No.
Because we have an example of where you shouldn't. A Sydney teenager, a couple of weeks back, had serious burns to his upper and lower body after he set fire to his notes. The 18-year-old got flown to hospital after receiving multiple burns to his upper and lower body after torching what they claim as piles of study notes at a property in Sydney's northwest, actually up in Arcadia. So in the north of Sydney there.
Well, that's a bit ironic. Arcadia is, one of the highest centres of learning. It's derived from a Greek word. It means stuff. I burnt my notes on Greek, so I can't remember what it was.
I burnt myself. Care Flight had to come in. They treated him at the scene. He was flown to Royal North Shore Hospital in a stable, but in a stable condition. But he was in good spirits.
Was he drinking good spirits?
No, not really. No. Anyway, he added fuel to the bin to set it alight. So this is where you made your. Obviously, he didn't do chemistry because
or science apparently,
or common sense. 1 year common sense, just to fill up the bands there. Now the HSC results were delivered to students about a week and a half ago. And to be honest, it's just a number.
Yeah.
It is not the rest of your life. It is not going to be what you need or what you think you should be for the rest of your life, okay? I mean, look at us. We're hosting a dingy podcast.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just a number to 99.99% of people. But obviously this guy that set himself on fire, he got a low score, didn't he?
Well, we don't know because the paperwork's now singed. Although, actually, I just want to make a point. Remember when you were in high school or in Year 6 and you had to do a history report or something like that.
Right.
And what you would do is you would get a piece of A4 and you would get a lighter under Dad's supervision and burn the edges to make it look like the document was old.
Ah, yeah.
Maybe soak it in tea for like...
Yeah, presentation was king back in primary school.
Presentation was king, and no one came at us to say, don't play with matches, don't play with fire, because, you know, you wanted to get like 9 out of 10 or, 19 out of 20 for your,
history report.
History report.
Yeah, or remember when you used to do the ones on Egypt and you go and get that big piece of cardboard,
Yes.
the project cardboard,
Yep.
and you'd be